The Mirror's Secret. Chapter 1. The New Studio. Anna was a painter. She loved to paint beautiful pictures of nature. One day, she decided to move to a quiet place where she could focus on her art. She found an old cottage in a small town. The cottage had an attic with a big room. This room would be her studio, a perfect place to paint. When Anna first saw the cottage, she felt happy. "This is the right place for me," she thought. The cottage was old, but it was peaceful. The walls were made of wood, and the windows were big, letting in lots of light. Anna smiled as she looked around. Inside the studio, Anna found an old mirror. It was tall and dusty, standing in the corner of the room. She wiped the dust off the mirror and looked at herself. "This mirror is strange," she thought, but she did not worry too much about it. She was excited to start painting. Anna started to unpack her things. She put her brushes, paints, and canvases on a table near the window. She also placed a few of her old paintings on the walls to make the room feel like her own. As she worked, she thought about all the beautiful pictures she would paint in this new studio. Later that day, a neighbor came to visit. Her name was Mrs. Willow. She was an old lady with kind eyes and a warm smile. She knocked on the door, and Anna opened it. "Hello, dear, I'm Mrs. Willow. I live just down the road," the old lady said with a friendly voice. "Hello, Mrs. Willow, I'm Anna. I just moved in," Anna replied, smiling. "It's nice to meet you, Anna. This cottage is very old, you know. Many people have lived here before. I hope you like it," Mrs. Willow said. "I do like it. It's very quiet, and that's what I need for my painting," Anna explained. Mrs. Willow looked at Anna kindly. "I'm sure you will create beautiful art here. If you ever need anything, just come to my house. I live in the little red house at the end of the street." "Thank you, Mrs. Willow. That's very kind of you," Anna said. After Mrs. Willow left, Anna sat in her new studio. She looked around the room and felt happy. Chapter 2. The Inspiration. Anna began her first day in the new studio. She woke up early, excited to start painting. The morning sun came through the big windows, filling the room with light. Anna smiled as she set up her canvas and paints. "This is going to be a great day," she thought. As she started to paint, she felt full of ideas. Her brush moved easily on the canvas, and the colors looked bright and beautiful. Anna was happy. She felt like she could paint all day. The room was quiet, and she could focus on her work. But then, something strange happened. Anna noticed that one of her paintbrushes was not where she left it. She always put her brushes in the same place, but now one was missing. Where did it go? She wondered. Anna looked around the room. She found the brush on the floor, far from where she had left it. "That's odd," she said to herself, picking it up. But she didn't think too much about it. She was too excited to paint. Later, Anna decided to take a break. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. As she drank her tea, she looked at her painting. She felt proud of her work, but there was also a small feeling of worry. "Why did my brush fall?" she thought. "Maybe I was just careless." When she finished her tea, she went back to the canvas. But now, something else was wrong. The color on the canvas looked different. She was sure she had painted the sky blue, but now it looked more like a strange shade of gray. Anna frowned. "Did I make a mistake?" she asked herself. She tried to fix the color, but it didn't feel right. She started to feel a little uneasy. "This is strange," she thought. But she shook her head and kept painting. "I'm just tired," she told herself. "It's a new place, and I need time to get used to it." As the day went on, Anna noticed more small things. The light in the room seemed to change, even though it was daytime. Sometimes it was bright, and other times it was dim. She also felt like someone was watching her, but when she turned around, no one was there. That evening, Anna stopped painting. She looked at her work and sighed. "It's good, but something feels off," she thought. She cleaned her brushes and put everything away carefully. As she did, she couldn't help but think about the strange things that had happened. Before going to bed, Anna looked around the room one more time. Everything seemed normal, but she still felt a little uneasy. Maybe tomorrow will be better, she thought. She turned off the light and left the studio, hoping that the next day would be less strange. Chapter 3: The Stranger in the Paintings. The next morning, Anna woke up with a new idea for her painting. She was excited to start working again, hoping that today would be better. She had her breakfast quickly and went straight to her studio. When she started painting, she noticed that her ideas were flowing easily. Her brush moved smoothly, and the colors looked beautiful. Anna felt happy as she painted. But after a while, she saw something strange on the canvas. In the background of her painting, there was a shadow. It looked like the shape of a person, but Anna didn't remember painting it. She frowned and looked closer. "That's odd," she said to herself. "I didn't paint this." Anna tried to ignore the shadow and kept working, but every time she looked at the canvas, the shadow seemed to get clearer. It started to look like a man, standing far away in the painting. He had no face, just a dark shape. Anna felt a little scared. "Who is this?" she wondered. She put down her brush and stepped back. The man in the painting seemed to be watching her. But how could that be? It was just a painting. Anna shook her head, trying to push the strange feeling away. "Maybe it's just my imagination," she thought. "I'm thinking too much." She decided to take a break and went downstairs to have some tea. But even as she sat at the table, she couldn't stop thinking about the shadowy man in her painting. After a while, Anna went back to the studio. She hoped that the strange shadow would be gone, but it was still there. In fact, it looked even more clear now. The man was still far away, but she could see his shape more clearly. He seemed tall, and his figure was dark and mysterious. Anna felt uneasy. "Why is this happening?" she asked herself. "Why do I keep painting this man?" She didn't know what to do. She thought about covering the painting with new colors, but something stopped her. She was curious about the shadowy man. "I need to know more," she thought. "Maybe there's a reason I'm painting him." Anna decided to keep working, hoping that the painting would make sense soon. That evening, as she finished for the day, Anna looked at the painting one last time. The shadowy man was still there, but he hadn't changed much. He was still in the background, watching her. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. "Who are you?" she whispered, staring at the painting. But of course, there was no answer. Feeling uneasy, Anna turned off the light and left the studio. She tried to forget about the strange man in the painting, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. "Maybe tomorrow I'll understand," she thought. But deep inside, she was afraid of what she might find. Chapter 4: The Mirror's Secret. The next morning, Anna woke up feeling nervous. She couldn't stop thinking about the shadowy man in her painting. She decided to go to her studio and see if anything had changed. She hoped the man would be gone. When she entered the studio, the first thing she noticed was the old mirror in the corner. It was dusty again, even though she had cleaned it before. Anna walked over and wiped the dust away. As she looked into the mirror, something strange happened. At first, she saw her own reflection. But then, her reflection started to fade. Slowly, another figure appeared in the mirror. It was the shadowy man from her painting. Anna gasped and stepped back, her heart beating fast. "This can't be real," she whispered, staring at the mirror. The man in the mirror looked clearer now. He was tall, with dark clothes, but his face was still hard to see. It was like he was trying to come closer, to step out of the mirror. Anna felt scared. "What is happening?" she thought. She wanted to run, but her feet felt heavy. She couldn't take her eyes off the mirror. The man's figure moved slightly, as if he was trying to reach out to her. Suddenly, Anna turned away from the mirror. She couldn't look at it anymore. She felt cold and frightened. I need to get out of here, she thought. But she also felt curious. Why was this happening? Who was this man? Anna decided to cover the mirror. She found a big cloth and threw it over the mirror. There, she said to herself, trying to feel brave. Now I don't have to see him. But even with the mirror covered, Anna couldn't stop thinking about the man. Is he real? Or is it just my imagination? She wondered. She didn't have any answers, and it made her feel more scared. Later that day, Anna tried to paint again, but she couldn't focus. Her thoughts kept going back to the mirror and the shadowy man. She looked at her painting, and the man was still there, in the background, watching her. Anna sighed. I don't understand any of this, she said out loud. She decided to take a break and went outside for a walk. The fresh air helped her feel a little better, but the strange events in the studio stayed on her mind. When she returned to the studio that evening, Anna felt a chill as she walked in. The room seemed colder than before. She looked at the mirror, still covered with the cloth, and felt a shiver run down her spine. I can't keep living like this, she thought. I need to find out what's going on. But she was too scared to uncover the mirror again. Instead, she decided to leave the studio for the night. As she left, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadowy man was still watching her, even with the mirror covered. Anna closed the door behind her and tried to forget about the mirror and the man. But deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore them forever. Chapter 5. The Vanishing. I can't stay here, Anna whispered to herself. She decided it was time to leave the studio. But just as she started to pack her things, she felt a strange pull toward the mirror. Against her better judgment, Anna walked slowly toward the mirror. Her hands shook as she reached out to lift the cloth. I don't want to see him, she thought, but she couldn't stop herself. When she uncovered the mirror, her heart stopped. The shadowy man was no longer in the mirror. Instead, Anna saw her own reflection, but something was wrong. Her reflection was fading, becoming more and more transparent. She could see the wall behind her reflection as if she was disappearing. No! This isn't real! Anna cried out, but her voice was weak. She tried to step back, but her feet wouldn't move. It was like she was stuck in place, unable to escape. As she watched in horror, her reflection faded completely, and the shadowy man appeared in the mirror, clear and strong. He was smiling now as if he had won something. Anna's body felt cold, and she realized she couldn't feel her hands or feet anymore. I'm disappearing, she thought, panic rising inside her. What's happening to me? Anna tried to scream, but no sound came out. She looked down at her hands and saw that they were fading too. The more she tried to move, the more she felt herself slipping away. In her last moments, Anna looked into the mirror and saw the man step out of it. He walked over to her painting, picked up the brush, and started to paint, just like she had done. But now, it was his painting, not hers. Anna wanted to cry, to shout, to do something, but it was too late. Her body disappeared completely, leaving only the shadowy man in the studio. He stood in front of the canvas, painting calmly, as if nothing strange had happened. Anna was gone, vanished without a trace. The shadowy man had taken her place, and now the studio was his. The mirror stood empty, showing only the room behind it. No one would ever know what happened to Anna. Chapter 6. The New Painter. The next day, the small town was peaceful as always. A young artist named Liam, who lived nearby, decided to visit Anna. He had heard about her paintings and wanted to see her work. I'll stop by and say hello, Liam thought as he walked to the cottage. When Liam reached the cottage, he noticed that the door to the studio was slightly open. He knocked gently. Hello? Anna, are you there? He called out, but there was no answer. Curious, Liam pushed the door open and stepped inside. The studio was quiet and cold. The light from the windows was dim, and everything seemed still. Liam looked around, expecting to see Anna, but instead he saw a man standing at the canvas, painting. The man had dark clothes and a serious expression. He didn't look up when Liam entered. Liam was surprised. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said. "I thought this was Anna's studio." The man turned slowly and looked at Liam. He smiled, but it was a cold smile that made Liam feel uneasy. "Anna is not here," the man said in a deep voice. "I'm the painter now." Liam felt confused. "But where is Anna?" he asked, looking around the room. "I wanted to see her work." The man's smile didn't change. "She left. She asked me to continue her work," he said, turning back to the canvas. Liam frowned. Something didn't feel right, but he couldn't figure out what it was. "That's strange," he thought. "Why would Anna leave so suddenly?" Liam decided to look around the studio. He noticed the old mirror in the corner. It was uncovered now, and when he looked into it, he felt a shiver. The mirror showed the room, but there was something odd about it, something he couldn't quite explain. He turned back to the man. "What are you painting?" Liam asked, trying to sound friendly. The man stepped aside, revealing the canvas. It was a painting of a woman trapped inside a mirror. The woman's face looked scared, and her hands were pressed against the glass, as if she was trying to escape. Liam's eyes widened. That's strange," he said, feeling a chill. "Why are you painting this?" The man's smile faded, and his expression became serious. "It's just a painting," he said coldly. "Nothing more." But Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He looked around the studio again and noticed that there were no signs of Anna. No personal items, no sketches, nothing that showed she had lived there. "Are you sure Anna left?" Liam asked, feeling more uneasy. The man didn't answer right away. He turned back to the canvas and continued painting. "Yes," he finally said. Liam didn't know what to say. He felt uncomfortable and decided it was time to leave. "Well, I should go," he said, stepping toward the door. "Tell Anna I stopped by, if you see her." The man didn't reply. He just kept painting, his brush moving smoothly on the canvas. Liam glanced one last time at the strange painting and then quickly left the studio. As he walked away from the cottage, Liam couldn't stop thinking about the man and the painting. Something isn't right, he thought. But what could he do? He didn't know where Anna was, and the man had seemed so sure she was gone. Liam decided to tell the townspeople about his visit. Maybe someone else had seen Anna, or maybe they knew more about the man in the studio. But deep down, he felt a growing sense of dread, as if a dark secret was hidden in that cottage. And in the quiet studio, the shadowy man continued to paint, his brush creating more eerie images. Anna was gone, but her story was far from over. The studio belonged to the new painter now, and the mystery of what happened to Anna remained, locked inside the cold walls of the old cottage. Chapter 7. The Silent Plea. A few days passed, and the small town continued with its usual calm, but Liam couldn't forget his strange visit to Anna's studio. He told some of the townspeople about the man he met there, but no one had seen Anna. People started to worry. Where could she have gone? They wondered. One evening, Liam decided to visit the cottage again. Maybe I'll find some clues this time, he thought. As he walked to the cottage, the sun was setting, and the sky was turning dark. The cottage looked even more mysterious in the dim light. When Liam arrived, the studio door was closed, but he noticed a soft light coming from inside. He knocked on the door, feeling nervous. "Hello? Is anyone there?" he called out. There was no answer, but the door creaked open by itself. Liam felt a shiver run down his spine, but he stepped inside. The studio was cold, and the air felt heavy. He saw the man again, standing by the canvas, painting silently. Liam took a deep breath and spoke. "I've come to see if there's any news about Anna. The townspeople are worried," he said. The man didn't look up. "There's nothing to worry about," he said in a low voice. "Anna is gone, and I'm continuing her work." Liam didn't like the man's tone, but he didn't know what else to say. He looked around the room, hoping to find something that would explain what had happened. His eyes fell on the old mirror in the corner, and he felt a strange pull toward it. Liam slowly walked over to the mirror. As he got closer, he saw something that made his heart race. There, inside the mirror, was a faint image of a woman. It was Anna. She looked frightened, and her hands were pressed against the glass, just like in the painting. "Anna?" Liam whispered, his voice shaking. "Is that really you?" Anna's reflection didn't move, but her eyes seemed to be pleading for help. "What is this?" he thought. "How can she be in the mirror?" He turned to the man. "What have you done?" Liam asked, his voice trembling. "Why is Anna in the mirror?" The man finally looked up from his painting. His eyes were cold and distant. "She belongs there now," he said calmly. "This is her fate." Liam's mind raced. He wanted to help Anna, but he didn't know how. "This can't be real," he thought. "I have to get her out." He reached out to touch the mirror, but his hand passed right through it, as if it wasn't solid. Anna's image flickered, and her face looked even more desperate. Liam pulled his hand back, feeling helpless. "Please let her go," Liam begged the man. "She doesn't deserve this." The man shook his head slowly. "It's too late. She is part of the studio now. She will stay with me, forever," he said in a cold voice. Liam felt tears in his eyes. He didn't know what to do. Anna was trapped, and he couldn't help her. He felt a deep sadness and fear. "I'm so sorry, Anna," he whispered, his voice full of sorrow. The man returned to his painting, ignoring Liam. "You should leave," he said without looking up. "There's nothing more you can do here." Liam looked at her one last time. Then, with a heavy heart, he turned and walked out of the studio. As he left the cottage, Liam felt a deep sense of loss. "I couldn't save her," he thought, his eyes filling with tears. The night was dark and cold, and he felt alone, carrying the weight of the terrible secret he had discovered. Back in the studio, the man continued to paint, his brush moving smoothly on the canvas. Anna's image remained in the mirror, a silent plea that no one could answer. The studio was quiet once more, but the air was thick with the sadness of a story that could never be told. Chapter 8. The Final Painting. A few weeks passed, but Liam couldn't forget about Anna. The image of her trapped in the mirror haunted him day and night. He couldn't sleep, and he couldn't focus on his own art. "I have to do something," he thought, but he didn't know what. One evening, Liam decided to visit the cottage one last time. "Maybe there's a way to help her," he told himself, even though he was afraid. The night was cold, and the wind blew through the trees as he walked to the old studio. When he arrived, the door to the studio was closed. Liam hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. The room was dark, with only a small candle flickering on the table. The man was there, as always, sitting in front of the canvas, painting silently. Liam stepped inside, his heart pounding. "I have to see Anna," he said, his voice shaky but firm. The man didn't look up. "There's nothing to see," he replied in his cold, distant voice. Ignoring him, Liam walked over to the mirror in the corner. He lifted the cloth that was covering it, and there she was, Anna, still trapped inside. Her face looked tired and sad, but her eyes lit up when she saw Liam. "Anna, I'm here," Liam whispered with tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry I couldn't help you before." He looked around the studio and saw that the man was working on a new painting. Curious, Liam walked over to see what it was. On the canvas was a new image. This time, it was a painting of Anna standing in front of the mirror, but she was free. She was smiling, holding a paintbrush, and the mirror was empty behind her. Liam's heart skipped a beat.
"What is this?"
Liam asked, surprised.
"Are you going to let her go?"
The man finally looked up, his eyes meeting Liam's. For the first time, there was a hint of warmth in his expression.
"This is her final painting," he said softly. "It's time for her to be free."
Liam couldn't believe what he was hearing.
"But why did you trap her in the first place?"
he asked, confused. The man sighed and looked sad.
"Long ago, I was an artist too," he began. "I loved to paint, but I was selfish. I wanted to live forever, so I used magic to trap myself in the mirror. That way, I would never grow old. But I became lonely. I needed someone with me, so I trapped others, like Anna."
Liam felt a mix of anger and pity.
"But that's not fair. She didn't deserve that," he said.
The man nodded slowly.
"You're right," he said. "I see that now. Keeping Anna here has only caused more pain. She is kind and full of life. I don't want her to suffer like I did. It's time for her to live her life again."
He continued to work on the painting with careful, deliberate strokes. Liam watched in awe as the man finished the painting. The colors were bright and beautiful, full of life and joy. When the last brushstroke was done, the man stepped back and sighed.
"It is finished," he said quietly.
Liam turned to the mirror. To his amazement, Anna's reflection began to fade. But this time it was different. She wasn't disappearing. She was being set free. Slowly her image grew brighter, and then, with a soft glow, she stepped out of the mirror.
Anna stood in the studio, free at last. She looked around, her eyes wide with amazement.
"I'm free," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "I'm really free!" Liam rushed over to her, tears of happiness streaming down his face.
"Anna, you're back," he cried, unable to contain his joy.
Anna smiled at Liam, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Liam," she said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on me."
The man watched them silently, a faint smile on his lips. He knew his work was done. The studio, once cold and dark, was now filled with warmth and light. Anna turned to the man, her expression gentle.
"Thank you,"
she said, her voice full of gratitude. "I don't understand everything that happened, but I know you helped me in the end."
The man nodded, his eyes filled with understanding.
"You are free now, Anna. Go and live your life," he said quietly.
Anna and Liam left the studio together, stepping out into the cool night air. They walked away from the cottage. The nightmare was over, and Anna was free to live her life again.
Back in the studio, the man looked at the final painting one last time. It was a masterpiece, full of hope and beauty.
He smiled, knowing that he had done the right thing. Then, quietly, he covered the painting and stepped into the shadows, his work complete. The studio was silent once more, but this time it was a peaceful silence. The mirror was empty, and the room was filled with a sense of calm. Anna was free, and the story of the studio had come to a gentle, hopeful end. The end. The story is aligned with the A1 level of the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, CEFR, which is the beginner level. Here are 5 words phrases from the story, with their meanings and examples, both from the story and real life. 1. Studio. Meaning, a room or place where an artist works on their craft, such as painting, music, or photography. Example from the story. Anna worked in her studio to create her paintings. It was a quiet place where she could focus on her art. Real-life example. A photographer sets up her lights and camera in her studio to take professional portraits. 2. Reflection. Meaning. The image of something as seen in a mirror or other shiny surface.
Example from the story. Anna looked at her reflection in the mirror, but it started to fade, and she saw the shadowy man instead. Real-life example. When you look into a pond on a calm day, you can see your reflection in the water.
3. Vanishing.
Meaning, disappearing suddenly and completely. Example from the story. Anna's vanishing started when her reflection faded in the mirror, and she eventually disappeared entirely from the real world.
Real-life example. The magician made the rabbit vanish from the hat, leaving the audience amazed.
4. Faint. Meaning weak, unclear, or barely noticeable.
Example from the story. In the mirror, Liam saw a faint image of Anna, looking scared and trapped inside.
Real-life example. After running for an hour, she felt faint and had to sit down to rest. 5. Plea. Meaning, a serious and emotional request for help or action. Example from the story. Anna's eyes in the mirror were full of a silent plea for help, asking Liam to save her.
Real-life example. The child made a plea to her parents to let her stay up late to watch her favorite movie.
Here are 3 things the reader can learn from the story. 1. The power of persistence. 2. The importance of courage.
3. The consequences of isolation.
This story and voiceover have been provided by English Made Easy. Learn through stories. Copying or re-uploading is strictly prohibited.